Hello, this is Mrs. Chavez. Today we're going to be starting with Chapter 13. This is modern AP world history, so we're not starting from the very beginning. We're starting basically in the middle of the book. Chapter 13 is the resurgence of empire in East Asia. There are 4 sections to this chapter, so you'll have 4 lectures from here. I hope my lectures aren't boring you. I try to keep them short and sweet, but you do need to take your notes in your OneNote. So let's get started. After the Han Dynasty collapsed in 220 CE, no emperor was strong enough to hold China together. Over the next 350 years, more than 30 local dynasties rose and fell, and finally, by 589, an emperor named Wendi had united northern and southern China once again. He restored a strong central government, and under the next 2 dynasties, the Tang and the Song, China experienced a prolonged golden age. It became the richest, most powerful, and most advanced country in the world. I'm not talking about just in the East, I'm talking about in the world. Wendi declared himself the first emperor of the Sui dynasty. The dynasty lasted only through 2 emperors, from 581 to 618. The Sui emperor's greatest accomplishment was the completion of the Grand Canal. This was a waterway that connected the northern and the southern part of China. If you take a look here, you can see the blue, where follow my erratic pointer here. The red from the bottom to the south, from the south to the north. If you also take a look, you'll notice that in China, their rivers run east and west. There are no connecting rivers that connect the north and south with each other. This is difficult. This makes it a difficult way to connect the country to each other, especially since in the northern region up here, this here area here, this is where most of the crops are grown. Most of the crops are grown in the northern, and they're sent down to the south. So they weren't so lucky like we were. We had in the United States, we end up having, in North America, we end up having the Mississippi River, major waterway that comes right down the middle of the country and connects all these east and west rivers. So this canal provides a vital route for trade between the northern cities and the southern rice-producing region of the Chang Delta. About 1 million peasant men and women worked 5 years to dig the more than 1,000-mile waterway. Perhaps as many as half of the workers died on the project alone. Thousands more worked and died rebuilding the Great Wall. The endless labor on state projects turned the people against the Sui dynasty. They were overworked and overtaxed, and finally they revolted. In 618, a member of the imperial court assassinated the second Sui emperor, and this initiated the beginning of the Tang dynasty. Well, short-lived, the Sui dynasty built a really strong foundation for the great achievements of the next dynasty, the Tang. The Tang dynasty ruled for almost 300 years, from 618 to 907. The Tang emperors who began these achievements was, of course, Tang Taisong. He had murdered his 2 brothers to take over the throne. He was a strong ruler. He lasted from 626 to 649, and during that period of time, he was a law and order guy. He lowered the taxes and lowered the prices, and he was very effective at the implementation of earlier Sui policies. The Tang expanded the network of roads and canals that were begun by the Sui, and this helped to pull the empire together. They promoted foreign trade and improvements in agriculture. The equal field system, which was 20% of the land, went into hereditary ownership, and 80% was redistributed according to formula. Family size, land fertility, all this worked well until the 8th century. And then there was massive corruption, loss of land to the Buddhist monasteries, which starts to create this rivalry between the political establishment and the Buddhist monks. To manage their large empire, the Tang rulers needed to restore the bureaucracy. They did this by reviving and expanding the civil service examination system that was begun in the Han Dynasty. The few candidates who passed the tough exams became part of an elite group of scholar officials called scholar gentry. In theory, the exams were open to all men, even commoners. However, only the wealthy could afford the necessary years of education. Also, men with political connections could obtain high positions without taking the exams. Despite these flaws, the system created a remarkably intelligent and capable governing class in China. Before the Tang Dynasty, a few noble families dominated the country. As the examination system grew in importance, talent and education became more important than noble birth and winning power. As a result, many moderately wealthy families shared in China's government. Under the Tang rulers, the empire expanded. Taizong's armies reconquered the northern and western lands that China had lost since the decline of the Han Dynasty. And by 668, China had extended its influence over Korea as well. The ruler during the campaign in Korea was the Empress Wu Zhao. From about 660 on, she led the real power, while weak emperors sat on the throne. Finally, in 690, Empress Wu assumed the title of emperor for herself, the only woman ever to do so in China. So, in order to meet that rising cost of government and the expansion, the Tang rulers imposed crushing taxes in the mid-700s. These brought hardship to the people, but failed to cover the cost of military expansion and new building programs. Moreover, the Tang struggled to control the vast empire they had built. In 751, Muslim armies soundly defeated the Chinese at the Battle of Talas. As a result, Central Asia passed out of Chinese control and into foreign hands. After this time, border attacks and internal rebellion steadily chipped away at the power of the imperial government. Finally, in 907, Chinese rebels sacked and burned the Tang capital at Chang'an and murdered the last Tang emperor, who was a child at the time.